So Matt, what do we want to sketch today?
So today I wanted to go through a bit of a sketch for our new office that we're going to be building later this year. So oftentimes when we start to begin a sketch, we'll start with the floor plan. And in this case, the floor plan for our office, we wanted to keep it simple. It's just a simple rectilinear form, kind of a box that's about 40 feet by 60 feet. And you know, when we start thinking through a design process, we start thinking of it kind of more diagrammatic. We start thinking about through like how we want to move through the space, how we want to generally organize a space. So with our new office, we knew that we wanted to somehow have a center point within the building, something special that happened kind of at the midpoint of the building. We have a very long site. It's kind of narrow but very deep. And we knew that we wanted to be able to sort of flow through the building, you know, from front to back. And as you sort of went through the building, you would have these different sort of zones as you're sort of moving through. So thinking through the site, we want this front parking space. We want some sort of a covered entrance to the front of the building. So we're thinking of this little void space that as you walk through the front door, you're greeted by the receptionist here, and then you're given the option to sort of move through the building, flanking either side of this one singular moment that we kind of felt as like a collector space, something where all of the different functions of the building could gather here. And as we sort of evolved our thinking about this, it's going to be a two-story building. So we started thinking through the idea that, you know, maybe this could actually be a set of stairs. And the set of stairs could actually be almost like a gathering space. So we have two tiers of steps. So we have, you know, what we like to call a skip step. So it's basically a step and then one skip. So you get these little seating areas adjacent to the steps themselves. So we're thinking of the stair that carries you from each level as like that central gathering space, and sort of like an atrium sort of space there as well. And then either side of that would be our main travel through the building. So that's the basic diagram. And if we spin the paper, what's really cool is we can sort of move into a parallelogram. And a parallelogram sketch is basically where, you know, you're drawing these parallel lines, but it's easy to switch from 2D to 3D. So I can easily begin to draw vertical lines if I spin my paper, and I can sort of begin to animate this thing three-dimensionally. And as long as I'm keeping all of my lines parallel, so if they're on the same plane, they're going to be parallel lines. So these two lines are parallel. These two lines are also going to be parallel. These front lines will be parallel, right? And it's those that sort of create the 3D aspect of the drawing. So, you know, as long as you keep that rule in mind, you can very quickly go from a 2D sketch to a 3D sketch. So when you're doing a parallelogram, it's just important to each face that you're working on, those lines, as long as they're parallel with each other, you can begin to create a three-dimensional form. So these are parallel with each other. This eave line and the peak are parallel with each other. The opposing eave are parallel with each other. This roof edge and this roof edge. So as long as you keep those rules, you can really easily transition from a two-dimensional plan to a three-dimensional form. I really like these little brush pens for kind of just creating a little bit of highlight around the perimeter of your sketch, and just kind of highlighting it a little bit more, because we want to, like any sketch, it can start out pretty messy, right? And as you sort of layer in more tone into your sketch, it's going to begin to sort of jump off the page, and it's going to kind of create more of a hierarchy. The darker lines that you apply will vanish some of the lighter lines that you applied earlier. That's why we always kind of start light when we're sketching, and then we sort of develop darkness as we, develop the sketch. So, when thinking through our office in particular, I had mentioned earlier this little cut right here, that's going to be the entranceway. So again, I'm going to just project that straight up. And that's going to be, this face is going to be kind of parallel here. And then, you've got this entrance condition, kind of walking surface here. And then you've got that little cutout. It's going to be our entryway. And we're thinking of some sort of a vertical siding on our entire building. And we're going to sort of be thinking about that hierarchically. So, planned lines or breaks in that siding are going to be how we organize our thinking about that. Also scale, I was thinking it would be kind of interesting if we upped the scale of our siding on the gable ends, just to sort of give it a little bit more detail and a little more contrast from one surface to the other. So a little bigger spacing up here and a little smaller spacing. Down here. And then the same on the sides. So we've got first floor level break, and then along the way we're gonna have these sort of peekaboo windows that let some of that natural light come in. And we like to sort of strategically think about the placement of those things with the breaks in the siding. And again, a little bit bigger planking above and some smaller planking below. And on the roof, we're going to have these much larger standing seam metal panels. They'll carry that moisture right down to the eaves. And again, you can see when I'm working on a plane, I'm always keeping those lines parallel within that plane. So these are parallel, these are parallel. And then I'll switch to my nice little brush. I like these little brushes for creating a little bit of contrast. And then you can kind of begin to use it to create some shade and shadow. One surface versus another. And the more I layer into this drawing, the more contrast I get, the less and less you see the plan that I originally drew, and the more and more you begin to see the three-dimensional form. Then we can bring in some Compex. Create a little bit of texture. And then with the windows, I often like to just darken them. They kind of begin to pop a little bit more. You know that they're, your mind kind of tells you that that's a glass or a window opening. Yeah. So the basic plan and form of our future office building.